Hi everyone, thanks for joining me this afternoon for Strategic Marketing on a Shoestring Budget. My name is Kristy Bailey and I'm from 180 Marketing and obviously an advisor for the Business Station's ASBAS program. Today we're going to go through marketing strategically and doing so with as little spend as is possible. My business, or the core of my business, is the development of marketing strategies. So hopefully what we go through today will very much be an insight into what I do on a daily basis, and you'll find elements that you can integrate into your businesses. The webinar is designed to be as interactive as possible, so use the Q&A functionality to ask any questions as we go. I'll keep an eye on those questions and try and answer them while we go, but otherwise there'll also be a few minutes at the end to ask any questions that you might have. We've got a lot to get through today, so we'll get started. First of all, what we're going to cover, well, we're going to identify the components of a marketing strategy and a marketing plan, and how a strategy can in fact have huge financial benefits for you. So that's where the shoestring side of it comes in, and operating on a low budget. We'll also identify a range of low-cost marketing tactics that you might be able to implement yourself within your business. And we'll look at the importance of measuring and controlling your marketing activities to ensure that ensure that you're producing sales and spending your money effectively, which is the key thing, making sure that any dollars spent are actually returning some kind of customer or revenue to you. So what is marketing? Well, to define, marketing really is anticipating the needs and wants of targeted customers and managing the process through which those needs and wants are satisfied, but doing so profitably. The keyword here, or two keywords, obviously targeted is one of the keywords. You have to know exactly who you're selling to so that you can know their specific needs and wants. And therefore provide them exactly what they want and provide it where they want it as well, so where they consume media. The other key element is doing so profitably. You have to make sure that your marketing is actually giving you a return and that you're making a profit. Remember that one of the key elements of today's webinar is looking at the theory that successful marketing doesn't have to cost your business significantly, but you absolutely need to know the results of what you're doing so that you can ensure that you are spending your money in those right areas. So that's where a strategic plan comes into it. So from an approach like this, the pyramid that you see, a strategic plan really sits within your business goals. So a marketing strategy absolutely has to align with your business goals. Business owners have to create a business plan when they start up, obviously, but the day-to-day running of the business gets in the way, and a lot of the time goes by, and then you might not refer back to that plan, or that plan might become irrelevant. A lot can happen in the business during that time. Your priorities might shift, new products might become or be introduced, or key staff can come and go. So the best way to make sure that you're marketing effectively and aligning with those business goals is to go through that process of annual planning, reviewing your business plan, and like I said, realigning the marketing strategy to that. Each year, you really need to take that time to measure your progress and assess those specific steps that you're going to take to make sure that you stay on track. That'll tie in to your marketing mix and then onto your marketing plan as well. So to define those strategic plan elements that you see on the pyramid, the marketing strategy aligns with the overall business plans and goals. That then defines the marketing mix, which is essentially your price, product, promotion, your place and distribution. And then the marketing plan is simply the implementation of it all, allocating your marketing resources, your resource allocation, implementation and budgeting. So the marketing strategy, that second component there, is really a selection of a course of action that involves specific consumer groups, so your target audience. It involves a range of communication methods, your distribution channels, so how you're going to get the word out there, and your pricing structures. So it's a combination of target markets and marketing mix. It allows you to really find and use what works and then stay focused and stay true to your business goals as well. So for a lot of small businesses, developing a marketing strategy has the tendency, or it can come with a lot of overhead, or the thought that it might be a huge overhead to create. A lot of advice that marketing specialists will give you will sort of go along the lines of requiring a huge budget to advertise to people. And again, that isn't always the case. And it doesn't have to be expensive. So some key strategy areas that we're going to look at here, or key elements that you would have in your marketing strategy that we're going to go through now. But keep in mind that strategic planning is an extensive process. So I'm going to run through these, but for me, it normally takes a number of weeks to really obtain a lot of this information. Then you've got to analyze the information. Generally, you go back and forth and then ultimately develop a strategy around everything that you've learned and analyzed. So just to go through these key strategic areas, one of the things that you absolutely have to look at is a SWOT analysis, which is your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. A pest analysis is also very important, and that's to look at factors that have and could have an impact on your business. Now, with a pest, we look at political, economical, social, technological, and then that can extend to be pestal with an E for environmental and an L for legal. So there could be factors across any of those areas that impact your business. A lot of the time with the factors that sit in a pest or a pestle analysis, you can't necessarily do anything about those factors, but you have to be aware that they exist because they have the potential to impact your business either positively or negatively. A competitor analysis is absolutely crucial as well. Now, a competitor analysis allows you to look at anyone that is a direct or an indirect competitor and assess them against your own company. Having a look at what their pricing is like, what their value to customers or what their perceived value to customers is, and what their overall unique selling proposition is. A sales analysis is crucial, so knowing your own sales results and then where you've got areas of planned growth. So it could be capitalizing on lower periods or seasonality. It could be introducing new products or changing your product range, but having a look at what sales you're actually attracting at that point in time so you can identify some growth areas. Defining your USP is important. So your unique selling proposition, that's what you're pitching to clients. So I mentioned earlier in a competitor analysis, you look at what your competitor's main key selling point is, but you also have to look at your own and work out what it is that you're going to pitch to people or that you're already pitching. Now, some more important, or the most important step or area, I believe, is defining your target market. So I'm going to go into the importance of that a little bit more shortly. Also, defining your marketing mix. So your 4 Ps, your product, price, place, and promotion, which is essentially how you're going to market your product or service. And then having a look at your financial analysis and budgeting. So how do you budget for marketing? What sort of budget do you have? As a general rule, people ask me often how much they should be spending on marketing. And I would say, as a general rule, between 4 and 10% of your gross revenue is the equivalent that you should be spending on marketing. So 4%, it's said that will maintain your position, whereas 10% will grow your position. So when you're doing your marketing budgeting and having a look at what you're actually willing to spend on marketing, you have to really estimate the demand given what your pricing strategy is and your promotional strategy. You have to look at what expenses it will cost you to produce advertising or marketing material, and you have to look at cash flows, having a look at your strategy and when you can expect cash to come in, therefore when you can spend it on marketing. The critical assumptions of the financial analysis is something else that you need to note and think about what the impacts are in changes to those assumptions. So some of those strategy areas are really straightforward and quite obvious, and they require research and completing documentation to sort of develop the knowledge of those areas, whereas some require a little bit more explanation. So I'm going to go into a couple of those areas now that do need a little bit more explanation. And the very first one is target market. So a target market is a segment that's been selected by your business for marketing attention. So I believe this is absolutely the most important component of your marketing, and that is to truly know your target market. You need to do this through research to define who your target market is or who your target market could be. You might find that there are target segments or customers that no one's reaching or communicating to. So they're not currently your market, but you want them to be your market. There may be target markets that are being served by your competitors that you'd like to get access to. Your competitors might not be serving them very well, for example. Other target markets might be saturated with options, so a lot more difficult to get to, and probably cost you a lot more in terms of advertising. So it is said that to be a viable market segment, a target audience must meet 4 criteria. So first of all, the individuals or the businesses, depending if you're a B2B or a B2C business, they need to be homogenous, which is that they all should be alike. The second element is that they have to differ from the general population and also be different than other market segments. So they have to be unique. You can't say that your market is females. It's not all females or all males. It has to be segmented further than that. So they have to differ from the general population in the description that you give them. The third element is that the market segment has to be large enough to be financially viable to support its own marketing campaign. So some market segments might meet the first 2 criteria, but they're too small to support their own campaign, and therefore they're not necessarily a target. Now, the last criteria is not something that we come across often, but it's that the market segment has to be reachable through some type of media or marketing communications method. So there's some market segments in places within the world that meet the first criteria, but not the 4th, for example. There's no feasible way to reach them with a marketing message. If you also think about children, kids, if you've got a product or service that appeals to kids, they're not easily reachable. So therefore you reach them through your parents. So that last element, they still do become reachable, but who you're talking to doesn't become the end customer, it becomes the decision maker. So consumer markets can be segmented or divided with a number of different dimensions. The most common is demographics because it's the easiest. Other methods or other ways to describe your target audience or to separate them, segment them, could be psychographics. It could be generational, it could be geographical, it could be through the benefits of your product or their usage of your product. And it could be through a combination of all of those. Without a clear image of your target market, if a small company doesn't understand who their target market is, you try to reach pretty much everyone and then you end up appealing to nobody. You should be able to describe your target market. You should be able to describe them down to absolutely everything that they do, see what their daily life looks like, and you should really be able to even visualize them. So that, as I mentioned, target markets really make up the core. Everything we do in a marketing strategy and in effective strategic marketing comes down to that point. Who is your target market? Now, a marketing mix is the next element of a marketing strategy that I'm going to expand on. A marketing mix includes the controllable factors that you've chosen to satisfy your customer needs. So the 4 controllable factors are your product, your price, your place, and your promotion. There is also the talk of 7 Ps. So some organizations will look at 7 Ps if you include people, processes, and your physical environment. So we basically, when we're looking at the marketing mix within a strategic plan, you were thinking about defining your strategies behind each of these elements and how you're going to achieve your goals and objectives based on who your target market is. So, for example, with your product, does your range complement each other and does it suit who you've identified as your target audience? Do you need to make any changes to appeal to more of your target market or to appeal more to your target market? Or do you have to introduce a new product or service to appeal to the target market that you've chosen? In terms of price, thinking about how does your pricing suit your target market? How does it compare to competitors? Or how does each price in your product range sit alongside each other? So do you have one high-end product for a certain amount and then another product that's not much difference in price, and therefore it makes it confusing for the customer to decide which product they want? So think about that. That's really important. In terms of promotion, going back to pricing, not only how it compares to each of your products, but also think about if it allows enough for profit. So profit is a really key element. Promotion is also known as distribution. So that's the fourth P. Think about what your strategy is around promoting your product or service. So do you wholesale your products? If you do, then go look back and look at your pricing and incorporate that into your pricing strategy to allow for a retail and a wholesale price. Think about how you're going to get to your target market. If you're attracting customers directly and not working or not selling your product on a wholesale basis, how do you communicate to them? Where specifically does that target market consume media or advertising, and what type of methods will appeal to them? Some target markets might be more easily available or more reachable online versus offline. Some might prefer traditional marketing. So you really need to know your customer to know what your promotional strategy is as well. Essentially knowing who your target audience is and exactly what media they consume will allow you to really effectively just place your advertising exactly where they're going to be consuming. And therefore, you're not wasting any funds on advertising that's not relevant or that's not talking to your target market. So from a strategic planning perspective, that was an absolute fly through in the development of a strategy. Obviously, it takes a lot of time and patience and a lot of hard work and research to develop a full strategy. But think about those key elements. We could talk about strategy all day, but we are going to talk about some more low-cost marketing strategies and activities. So the key point in terms of talking about strategy was to understand that you can be really, really targeted and spend your funds, particularly if funds are limited, extremely well, providing you have a solid strategy behind you. And just to recap, the key reasons that you should strategically plan are that it really composes the bigger picture, and it does it through pinpointing your specific target markets and the target markets that you'll serve. Through determining your customer needs and wants through market research. So you've researched your customers, you've identified who they are, and you know that your product or service perfectly meets their needs and wants. You've analyzed your competitors, and you've had a look at what your competitive advantage would be, and you've built a marketing strategy around what makes your business differ or stand out from others. And then that fourth element is creating a marketing mix that meets your customers' needs and wants, as well as where they consume media, as I mentioned. So some key considerations are that your strategic planning absolutely has to match your resources and your capabilities, to ensure long-term growth and survival. You have to factor in all components, what's happening internally, what's happening with your competitors, what potential, third-party threats there are, like your political, your environmental, your social, your technological threats. What are they, and how do they relate to your overall business so that you can get the big picture? I think that strategic planning is an integrated activity. I think that you should involve as many people and as many areas of your business as you can. So engage your staff or people that are involved in your business to help you complete things like your SWOT analysis. Find out from them what they believe or perceive your business strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats to be, because it will really allow you to have a look at things from another person's perspective. The other point on that, in terms of gaining other people's perspective, is you might have people on the front line that speak to your customers day to day, and they might have feedback from customers that they don't feed through to you. It's just something that someone always says, that people always say on a daily basis. This is their opportunity to let you know what that is. I think that there's things that maybe you are front of house or in the customer face, and you don't know things that are happening behind the scenes. So I think it's really important that at least on an annual basis, you look at bringing your team together, no matter how big or small that team might be, and really nutting out some of these things and having these open discussions about marketing and about your customers, so that you can generate ideas, they can potentially give feedback. I think it's really, really important that you do get them involved. And then when you go to run a marketing campaign or an advertising campaign, they'll feel very much more a part of it, and therefore will be really on board with it. So that really is the most important element in marketing on a shoestring budget, as I mentioned, is to be strategic. If you know exactly who you're talking to, what products they want, where they consume media, which is where you should advertise, and then you roll out your strategy, no marketing dollar should be wasted. So now we're going to get into looking at some low-cost marketing activities. We've done the research, or assuming you've done the research, you know your specific audience or the specific market that you're targeting your advertising towards, essentially, and you know where they consume media, then you know how to get to them. But I believe there are some essential low-cost marketing activities that every business, no matter who your target market, should really consider. So the first one is being online. So making sure that your online setup is solid. You've got a good website. You've got search engine optimization, which is being found online when people search various terms. And you're doing things like remarketing at a minimum. And I'll talk more about that later. So if you're not familiar with that term, don't worry, we'll get into that in just a second. I think online you should seek referrals and reviews. Make sure that you're also active and listening and engaging with those reviews. So set up alerts so that anytime people leave you, whether it be a Facebook review or a Google review, it could be a review on an industry specific type site like Urban Spoon or Booking.com or TripAdvisor. You need to know where people can review your business, and you need to be there and listening and engaging with those reviews. You also need to tell people where they can review you so that you can then listen to feedback that they're giving you. I think you need to personalize your marketing. So email and social media need to talk to your audience and talk about relevant events, whether it be at different times of year, talk about relevant products that your target audience are interested in. Also, obtain an email database so that you can continue that conversation and talk more specifically to your customers. If you've got people purchasing something with you, think about how you can obtain an email address off them so that when you launch a new product that's similar to the one that they've purchased, or if you're releasing a new service within your business that customers might want, you're able to stay in touch with those clients. And like I said, you might want to then tailor products to what they want as well. I think creating new customer offers is absolutely crucial. That the costly part of marketing is getting new customers. Once you've got them, they cost very little to keep, subject to your fantastic customer service, of course. You can then obviously stay in touch with them, as we've mentioned. So once you get them in, you can keep them in the cycle. But a hook to get new customers is always a good idea. And that could be the difference between someone going from to you, or your competitor. So creating an offer could really get them in, get them through the door, and then you've got them, you can hold on to them. The next point is to really nail your value proposition or your unique selling proposition. So think about what it is that makes your business unique, and what is that unique offer that you've got that perfectly suits what your customers' needs and wants are. And then focus on developing content that highlights it, and storytell through your content. So when I talk about content, that's content on social media, that's content on your blog, on your website, in your email communications. Make sure that that is all focused on your unique selling proposition so that you're talking direct to the client and what they might want. The next point is PR. PR is absolutely crucial for any business. It is very simple to do your own PR. You don't need big agencies to run the PR of your business. There are ways that you can do it internally, but you need to be your own PR advocate. We do have media and PR webinars, so keep an eye out for that. But that will really expand on how you can be involved in your own PR. PR is essentially getting free publicity, engaging with the media, and getting coverage on your business in a range of different forms of media. So not just traditional, but online, social as well. So that can be really valuable for your business. In terms of a low-cost activity, at most of the time, it's no cost. It's just really having those media relationships, knowing how to talk to the media, and being confident and comfortable that you've got something that's important enough for them to cover. I think that businesses will always have launches, new exciting things coming online, and engaging with the media and getting involved and trying to get those PR opportunities is great. People believe stories that they read in various media outlets a lot more than they believe advertising. And the great point there is that advertising costs you a lot, whereas the editorials don't. So if you can get that editorial coverage, it's obviously hugely valuable for you. Another tip or another activity, I guess, you could consider from a low-cost perspective is to sponsor events. Now, this not only events, sorry, it could be any sponsorship opportunities. The key thing here is making sure that your target market perfectly matches the target market of the event that you're going to sponsor or of that sponsorship opportunity. So if you have a local footy club that's come to you and they want you to sponsor by giving a donation, have a think about who are the people that are going to see that you've sponsored that football club. Is it going to be worth your while? Are they your people? Are they your customers? If they are, and you think there's a genuine opportunity in there that getting exposure to that demographic or to that target audience is going to result in business for your organization, absolutely look at it as a PR opportunity, but always align your target markets with that of the organization, event, or the opportunity of sponsorship. And the last point here is not to forget about grassroots marketing. Think about things like signs, handouts, billboards on your own venue. If you've got walls that are relatively blank, is there opportunity for signage? And also consider traditional marketing, keeping in mind that traditional marketing comes generally at a high cost. And traditional marketing, we mean newspaper, television, radio. So always consider it if it suits within your budget. But that grassroots marketing can be really beneficial. I think a lot of really small businesses do it well when you see signage on the roadside, and particularly roads that if you have to commute to and from work and you're going down the same road, that signage, that repetitive appearance of that signage really can hit home. So don't forget about those really obvious opportunities that don't cost you anything as well. So we're going to go further and explore some key online marketing tactics and how best to market your business online, because every business, no matter your industry, should be online, should have a website, and be doing some of these marketing activities or these tactics that we're going to talk about in more detail now. You can maximize your online presence, and you can really get new business and capitalize on every marketing dollar spent if you're online. Online advertising can be extremely targeted, which is a key element of online advertising. And of course, it's very trackable as well. So it takes the guesswork out of whether or not what you're doing is actually producing the right results. You can very carefully and closely track exactly what's going on. And then you can move away from marketing activities that aren't resulting in positive revenue or customers or leads, and focus your time and energy on things that are. So keep that in mind as well. So we're going to start by talking about your website. So your website is really the core of your marketing. It is mentioned offline, it's online. Ideally, you're trying to get people to your site in any marketing or advertising communication. But what you have to keep in mind that it's really only part of a strategy. It is the core and it is extremely important, but it is only part. Potential customers need to be able to find that website. And you also need to be able to actively engage with current and future customers online. And that happens in the social space and in other areas. So we're going to talk more about being found in a second. But first, your website itself is a place where customers can find out about your products, your services. They could potentially make purchases, even if your physical premises, your bricks and mortar, are closed, or maybe you don't have a physical premises at all. If you think of your website as your 24/7, your number one salesperson, is it doing your business justice? Is it selling your product or service as it should? And when was the last time you looked at it, updated it, and put the right information on there? So it is said that your website should be as easily updatable as your social media. So you should be able to get on there. Something happens within your business, your website should be the first place that change is made. So think about that and think about whether or not you are following those principles and whether or not your website really is that easily accessible. So some key website design elements that you need to consider are a fresh design. Obviously, it has to be fresh and it has to be appealing. It should, I should say, have large hero images that really highlight and tell the story of your product. The navigation should be easy. And think about maybe testing that with friends or family, because sometimes we become so used to our own website that we can find anything on it. But sit with someone that's never been on the site before and ask them to try and buy something or try and contact you, or give them specific tasks to do, watch them do it and see how easy or hard it might be for them. Also think about your calls to action. Are there buy now, shop now, contact us type buttons? Is your phone number clickable, for example, so that if you rely on people calling you to transact or to make a sale, are they easily able to do that? So those strong calls to action are really important. Is there plenty of content on there? So can customers get enough information about your business, and does the content flow and make sense? Remember, that also helps with how well you rank, so your SEO. So Google needs content on the website to understand what your website's about. So imagery is really important to sell your product, but content is fundamentally important to the success of your results on Google. And the other element is it fully responsive, or is it mobile friendly? So fully responsive is like the image that you see here. It looks good no matter what device they appear on, whether it be desktop, tablet, or mobile. Now, experts say that you should be building your website for mobile first, and then worry about what it looks like on desktop later, because of the trend and because of the way consumers are searching websites. A lot of it happens on mobile. So pick up your mobile, have a look at your website and see what customers are seeing and how easy or hard it is for them to get around. Keep in mind that everything about your website should be speaking to and aimed at your target markets. And I know I've said this many times, but it is so crucial that everything from the design, the colors, the fonts, the technology, the functionality, all speaks to your target market. That's all about who you're aiming your marketing towards. You want them to purchase from you or to transact with you. So you really have to tailor that design around what's going to appeal to them. So having a great website is one thing, but you also need people to be able to find it. So that's where SEO comes into it. So I've used the term SEO a couple of times, but you may not know what it is. So SEO is search engine optimization, but in simple terms, it's the process of improving your site to increase its visibility for relevant searches. So for SEO to be effective or worth your while, keyword research is absolutely key. So keyword research will basically allow you to investigate what people are potentially searching to get to you. So it starts with a brainstorm where you think about 10 to 15 key terms that people might be searching to get to your business. And then Google has a tool where you can enter these search terms and it will tell you how many average monthly searches there are. So if you've got a range of terms and some of them have no monthly searches, then you won't focus your SEO on the wording and a few elements of your website around those keywords. You'll focus it on where the higher volume of searches are. So do your keyword research before you do any SEO or make any changes to your website. So know what people are actually searching to get to your site through that Google Keyword Planner tool. Keyword research really just proves what those search volumes are, as I said. And then the next step for your website is to improve the rankings for those key search terms, the ones that have the highest volumes. And that's in search engines like Google. Not only Google, some people use Bing and other search engines, but Google is obviously the most predominant. So good SEO is really a combination of hundreds of tactical efforts. SEO changes and evolves continually. So tactics that may have worked in the past and seen good results might not work anymore, and you may need to rethink things. It really is important to continuously tune that SEO program. And just remember also, SEO takes time. I would allow at least a month before you start to see any results. And because it's continually changing, you need to keep on top of the latest algorithms and modify your SEO as changes come in. Generally, there is an announcement from Google, or there's a lot of experts, SEO experts, that will make they'll make suggestions or they'll make predictions on what may or may not be happening. Now, with SEO, there's two sides to it. There's on-page SEO and off-page SEO. Now, there are SEO experts that can really work on this for you, but there are also a lot of things that you can do yourself. So when we're talking about marketing on a shoestring budget, I'm going to go through now some elements and some things that you can change on your website yourself without having to engage someone. Okay, so first of all, we're going to look at on-page SEO. So on-page SEO is everything that happens on your site that affects the ranking. There's a few really obvious ones, like readable URLs. Make sure that when we say readable URLs, is it yourwebsite.com.au/about us, and that has the information about you, or is it a code rather than saying those words about us? The readable URL, whatever your page is about, your URL must state what that page is about. Otherwise, it's not doing any SEO work for you. Good internal links are really important. So this is page-to-page linking of relevant content. So on your homepage, you might talk about your product range and various products within your range or services. When you click on those particular product names or service names on that homepage, it should link you and take you directly to the page that you're talking about. So Google is going to rank you better for these things. And the reason being is Google is all about making the consumer happy. So if it's easy for the customer and it's easy for the visitor to your website, then it's a big tick from Google. And that's a really basic way to look at it. The other element is what we call 301 redirects, and that's just a redirection that informs the search engine robots, essentially, that content that used to live on a particular page has now moved to another page. So if you were to remove a page from your website, rather than deleting that page in the back end of your website, you always have to do a redirection. You never know where that link, who has that link, or who might try and go to that old page. So a 301 redirect, again, it's good for the consumer. It's good for their overall experience. Therefore, Google says, okay, that's going to improve the ranking on your site. Page load time is another element, so making sure that your pages load in a reasonable time frame. So really keep an eye on that speed. Images that you have on different pages, if you're uploading large images, that can really impact your page load time. So make sure you test that regularly. There's actually, Google have page load time tests that you can do, and they'll tell you whether it's at a satisfactory level or not. Now they're sort of the basic and quite obvious ones. The ones that we're going to go into a little bit more detail in terms of on-page SEO are page title tags, meta descriptions, alt tags, and heading tags. So they can be a little bit more in depth. So we'll talk through those a little bit more now. So first of all, you've got page title tags. So each of the pages in your website should have its own unique title tag, which includes the main keywords for that page. It's not the headline that's displayed on a page, but so it's only visible in code view. Google and other search engines use it to display as their main title in search results. So you can see on the screen there. For example, I've searched ASBAS Perth, and that's what comes up. So that's what has been used on as this particular page title tag. So ideally, the length of a title tag is 60 characters, which is long enough to display a good title without getting cut off. Absolutely minimize the use of stock words like the, is, and. They do absolutely nothing for you from an SEO perspective. So the preferred format in this sense is to put your primary keywords first. So aside from being a critical factor for Google robots, good page title tags also really heavily influence users, as appealing page titles are really a lot more likely to get clicked. So make sure it makes sense, and that's obviously your ultimate goal, but that will get people to click through to your site. Now we're looking at meta descriptions. So the meta description isn't visible in any part of your site except if you check the actual HTML code. So it could be a little bit harder to find depending on what sort of web platform you have. But that's essentially the little description that's found underneath your title in search results, like the example that you see there. So the meta description doesn't actually affect your ranking in search engines at all, but if it's well written, it will encourage people to click through to your site, which boosts your traffic, which is good for SEO. So it's like a mini ad for your web page, and it's absolutely free. If you don't enter a meta description for each of your pages, then Google's going to do it for you by taking a little sample from the text on your pages. So sometimes those samples can be cut off or not really relevant to your keywords. So I would absolutely take control of this yourself and not leave it to Google. So make sure that you only use 160 characters in your meta description to ensure that that text doesn't get cut off. And don't use the same meta description for every page on your website. So it is said that Google does not like that. So make those descriptions for each page completely unique. Okay, so now on to alt tags and heading tags. So alt tags are used for images. So they're HTML tags that you can use to describe what an image is. Search engines like Google can't see an image. So without the description, they have no idea what it is or if it's even relevant. So Google bots or robots will search your site looking for keywords. If there's no keywords that sit behind your image, it's not correctly labeled, then it's not going to be any value to you from an SEO perspective. If it is good and if it is relevant, then not only is it good for SEO, but you might have your images in the Google Images search section as well. So it's a good idea to include local keywords or relevant keywords in the title of the page with the keywords that you're trying to rank for. So that's just an example over here on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we've got heading tags. So heading tags are really important for SEO because they help the reader of your content, but also Google robots to determine what content is on your page and how important it is. So generally, web readers or visitors will glance over a page. So those headings and the size of them are really important to draw their eyes to the attention of specific topics. So search engines use the heading tags as indicators of context. So what's on this page and how does it relate to what the user is searching for? Heading tags all carry different weights. So the H1 is the most important, and that's the main page heading. So try and think about it like that. H1 is what is the entire page about. H2, H3, H4 is what the particular section or paragraph is about. And this relates to your actual website. So think about each web page where you've got a big heading, H1, and then smaller headings. Now these, when you go into the back end of your website, hopefully you have access, but if not, ask whoever is developing your website about these heading tags and make sure that that's all correct in the back end of your site so that you're getting that SEO value. Now, looking at off-page SEO or off-site SEO, it's called one or the other. This is actions that are taken outside of your own website that impact your rankings within search engine results pages. So off-page optimization really should be a large component of your SEO strategy because it will really help the credibility of your website. So you want your website to rank above others with similar messages. So to achieve that, you really need to build your website's authority. So we do that through link building. So link building is the process of getting external pages to link to a page on your website. And link building can be complicated. It can be time consuming. Not all links are created equal, so to speak. So a link from a really authoritative website will make a greater impact on a search engine results page than a link from a newly built or a low quality website. So if you think of it let's have a look at an analogy essentially. Who would you trust more to give you legal advice for your business? 20 strangers or 2 qualified lawyers? So chances are you're going to trust the advice of the lawyers over random strangers, even though you're not getting as many opinions. You know that the lawyers are educated, which means their advice carries more weight. So the same applies for search engines. Google bots will count the links that are coming into your website. However, they're not going to consider all of those links equal. They'll give more weight to high quality links and then rank them accordingly. So if your site has, for example, 100 poor quality links and your competitor has 15 good quality links, the chances are that your competitor will rank higher than you. So keep in mind that Google has become really good at spotting a scam. So a good quality link really has to have some kind of human contact to obtain. So it should come from a trusted and reputable site, or a site that's related to your type of business. It should be difficult to come by. In terms of, you know, not just email out, hey, can you link back to my site? There should be some kind of human contact, as I mentioned, or human implementation. It should come to a page that has content related to the content that it's being linked to. It should add value to the reader as well. So it should make sense to the reader, not just having a hidden page on your website with a whole heap of links to other businesses. Google sees right through all of that. And it should be likely to be clicked by the reader. So think about some really good quality links tend to be through, if you're a member of any particular organizations that relate to your industry, those kind of memberships generally have some kind of website listing and link. They're generally good quality, because if it's an industry specific membership base, their website will be talking all about the nature of your business and your industry. It'll link through to your business, which then talks about the same industry. So it'll generally be a high quality link. So think about those kind of links. Also think about things like links from, if you were to appear in a media story, for example, or a blog even, and they have content and then a link to your website. So they're talking about whatever your business is or whatever your product or service is, and then they link back to your website. So those kind of links can be great. There is also some non-link related offsite SEO. So earning those links from external website is the most common practice in terms of off-page or offsite SEO. But almost any activity that occurs outside of your own website and it helps to improve your search ranking could be thought of as an off-page SEO. So think about things like social media marketing that absolutely is incorporated in your off-page SEO strategy. Social does send signals. So if you get lots of engagement, lots of interaction on your social media pages, you've got links to your website, it's obviously the same business, then that does send signals to Google as well. Also guest blogging, linked or unlinked brand mentions on various websites, and of course influencer marketing can really help with your offsite SEO as well. Now, SEO is ranking organically when people search, but there's also SEM, which is search engine marketing, and that's advertising. It's generally Google display or search advertising, and it's pay per click. We're not going to get into that today because that is a topic in its own right. But what I'm just going to tell you about quickly is a form of Google AdWords, which is remarketing. So done correctly, remarketing can be great for increasing your brand awareness and influencing conversions, and it is generally very low cost. So remarketing is a very simple concept. You have a client or a prospect, a lead, they come to your website. It could be through any form of advertising, whether it's the back of your car, a flyer, it could be your social media pages, it could be anywhere, but they come to your website. There's a cookie and we track them on the website. They then leave your website for whatever reason. Let's say they get distracted, they get busy, they don't transact for whatever reason. Then as they're searching around the web, because we've tracked them because of the cookie, we've tracked them. Then when they're visiting other sites, your ads will display to them. So Google's essentially tracked them once they've left your site, and your ads appear in banners or pop-ups on any other site they browse. I'm sure you will have been the recipient of remarketing. Sometimes you realize it, sometimes you don't. But as you're browsing other sites, you're getting this constant reinforcement, constant reminder of the company that is remarketing to you, or that website that you're originally on. What then happens is, over a period of time that's defined by you, those ads will pop up. And then if the prospect or that lead or that potential customer is interested, at some point they may click to go back to your website. It's only at that point when they click that you're actually charged. So in terms of value for money, there will be so many impressions, and that brand awareness will really be created prior to that customer actually clicking back and getting onto your site. Now, the fact that they've clicked back to get on your site is generally a good it's a good indication, I should say, that they're actually willing to continue the search process and potentially buy something. So there's two main forms of remarketing. There's display and search. Display remarketing, your ads appear to past visitors, that people that have been on your site, no matter where they're looking. It doesn't have to be related at all to your product or business. But a more refined approach is search remarketing, and that means that your ad is only shown to past visitors on particular sites when they're searching for a similar product or service to yours. So if people are completing that search and looking at your competitors, that can be really valuable. And that the second approach that I mentioned is more effective because it targets people that are still looking. Okay, so in terms of your marketing and marketing effectively and making sure that your dollars spent are effective, a really critical part of that is really controlling and measuring your marketing. Essentially, you define the method of measurement before you launch any advertising. So you need to know if you're going to do a particular ad or ad campaign, how are you going to measure it? How are you going to deem successful? And what is success to you? So definitely have that set up prior to launching anything. And as an example, a lot of the stuff that we look on online, you can track through Google Analytics. So you absolutely have to have the analytics set up so that you can analyze the data. If it's sales, let's say you were doing a promotion where people had to quote a code and then they got a discount, for example, for new customers, you have to have a way of recording how many people claimed that offer to know that it's successful. So keeping this in mind, the recommendation from a control and measure perspective is that you evaluate all marketing activities, obviously defining that measurement before you implement the activity. Compare your goals and results to identify any deviations from your forecasts, identify what the causes of those deviations potentially were, and then formulate new plans and actions from that point. So correct any problems that you came across, but exploit opportunities. So there could be amazing opportunities, and you've only allocated a limited budget to a particular opportunity or campaign. You can then divert funds towards it if it's extremely successful, because assuming it's successful and the product that you're selling is profitable, it will be paying for itself. So you need to make sure with marketing and marketing strategically and doing so on a shoestring budget that you're staying disciplined and following the price and quantity objectives that you had. If conditions change, you need to take note of it and then adapt the marketing plan to fit the conditions. So there could be conditions completely beyond your control. It could be bad weather, it could be lockdowns, it could be absolutely anything, but make sure you revise those quantity objectives in sales if you don't achieve the sales target, and make sure they continue to be realistic. So the very best marketing plan is one that's reviewed often, and when you've learned lessons from a particular period of time, definitely carry those lessons over to the next. And that regular reporting, so monthly reporting, will really allow you to have a look at and reflect back on different periods of time. So I would recommend that you set up regular reporting. And like I said, monthly, I think is fantastic. It could be weekly that suits your business more. So keep that in mind. Now, in terms of what you should measure in that reporting, there's a few things that I would recommend at a minimum that you set up your monthly reporting to measure. First of all, sales and leads. So your total sales over a particular period of time is really important. Sales of specific products and services is also crucial. Obviously, the costs associated with that lead acquisition, so your marketing spend at that period of time, is important. The conversion rate on leads as well. So how many people inquired versus how many people booked, bought, or whatever your actual conversion is. Web statistics are really important. So look at unique users. So that's how many people came to your site uniquely, so not repeat visitors. Have a look at how many sessions, so how many people, and obviously look at unique sessions as well. How many people came to your site, and yeah, have a look at sessions to measure your overall traffic as well. Average page views, that's a really good way to measure how engaged people are with your website, or how deep they go into your site. How many pages do they view overall? If you've got a huge number of pages and people are only viewing 1 or 2, they might not be that engaged. If they're getting in and seeing, I think the average is about 2.3 pages per visit, and that's a fairly good statistic. So keep that in mind and have a look at how many views you're getting. Also look at referral traffic to your site. So where did the traffic come from? The referral section of Google Analytics will tell you whether it came from a third-party site, whether it came from social media, whether it came from your remarketing or your SEM, or whether it came organically. So have a look at that section. That's really important. And then, of course, in terms of monthly reporting, also look at your social media statistic. Have a look at how many people are on your socials. Have a look at engagement is really the key thing here that I would consider. Engagement is the #1 metric when it comes to social media. You can have thousands and thousands of followers, but how many people are actually seeing and engaging with your posts in terms of likes, shares, and comments as well. So obviously likes are fairly easy to dish out. Shares take a little bit more commitment because you're treating that content as your own and sharing it to your followers. And then comments are where people get really engaged. So keep that in mind. We're really looking for engagement when it comes to social media. Now, following all of that information in terms of, their strategic planning, having a look at some of those really low-cost marketing tactics that you can implement, or those activities you can implement, then measuring it all, you should really be able to refine every dollar and justify every dollar that's spent, and allow you to spend a lot less money, but also make sure that that money is actually generating a return for you. So that wraps up this session on strategic marketing. I hope that that makes sense to everyone, and I hope there's some things that you can take out of this to improve your marketing or to better spend your marketing dollars. We've really had to touch very lightly on things in such a short period of time. So keep in mind that if you do want to know more as part of this program, you can always join other webinars or workshops that we've got running, but you can also book a one-on-one appointment. So if there's any elements of today that you want to really delve into more, and that could be anything from remarketing to, your complete marketing strategy, a one-on-one can be a really great way to do that. Thanks again for joining me today. I hope you have a great afternoon, and I'm going to stay on now for some questions, and yeah, hopefully we can see you again on the next webinar. Thanks again.